Professor Hew's experience in education, we decided to talk about students and how they perceive the pandemic and what they can do better as they approach schools opening up and as they approach the impending doom of the job market.
Right, so the pandemic has already started, for example, driving even faster the transfer to online business.
Potentially, I'm already seeing an explosion with the gig economy and freelancing and working from home.
You can't just pop into the library and see something extra on the shelf that you weren't looking for that suddenly catches your eye. So let me now come to the resources and fees issue. Why haven't universities cut the fee?
Aadi, would you like to start it off?
You don't need to be in the same room anymore to do business.
I'm seeing more and more students rely a lot more on online opportunities.
You can just commission it and someone will pick it up.
Most people make that mistake. They think it's about the discipline.
Going to high school versus doing online courses.
You go and socialise with people more than maybe a mile or two away from their home. Some of the choices that will make you be a happier, more fulfilled adult.
Content. I just wanted to get your opinion on, if we were to rethink how we ran universities, what do you think is something that is best focused on or should be?
Okay, well, again, you're talking about another area I've done a little bit of writing around. This was pre-pandemic, and I was thinking about the gamification of education. Now, most people think of this in terms of things like little certificates and short-term goals to keep you motivated, and that is part of gamification. But the logical endpoint of this is that we are going to fractionalize, we're going to reduce the size of awards into a series of discrete, potentially micro-credentials is the buzzword at the moment. So you're studying law, Leo is studying IT and computing. But what if both of you want to learn something from those other disciplines? Now, under the Sunway Plus model, we have that opportunity for you because you can take a range of electives from any other discipline at some point in your second year. But in many traditional degree programs, that was never an option. But think about it going forward into the future. What if you want to do part of a master's in law, but you don't want to do the full master's? I suspect what will happen is you may identify 2, 3, 4 modules that particularly interest you, but say you're only maybe interested in doing half of each of them. Micro-credentials will enable you to do that, to say, okay, I don't want to do the full 3 credits of this module. I only want to do 1 credit. I'm only particularly interested in one particular learning outcome. But then, actually, there's somebody teaching that in Florida who's particularly interesting to me. Now, online, I can attend their lectures. So I might choose to be registered at Warwick, but studying for 1 credit in Florida. Similarly, I might choose to be studying for 2 credits to make up the full 3 for that particular subject, maybe a little bit further down the road from Warwick in somewhere like Birmingham. Why not? So what I can see happening in the future is that students will begin to assemble their own programs. They'll take credits from different institutions and different courses within those institutions. They may also choose to acquire that knowledge over a longer period or even a shorter period, right? So in Malaysia, we operate a learning outcome system. I know various international partners and comparative systems have tried this and not tried this, but ultimately what we're talking about is the capacity to demonstrate a level of mastery of a particular skill or an understanding of a particular area of knowledge. Now, if you can acquire that in 6 weeks, why should we arbitrarily say it should take you 3 years? That just seems to me crazy. Think about your driving test. Right? If you can pass your driving test after 3 days of practice, nobody says, no, sorry, you've got to take 3 years. So why is that going to happen with academic qualifications? You can already see this now with some of the professional qualifications. Qualifications that are actually accreditations built around competence. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to acquire what you need. All you need to be able to do is demonstrate that you've achieved the necessary level. So again, I can see that people will be moving through the educational system at a different rate. And potentially that means that some of the old boundaries around age will just begin to break down. And that, of course, is truly the meaning of lifelong learning. Why can't people study for particular qualifications at points in their lives that suit them when they've acquired the necessary competence? Why should that be tied to a particular phase of life or a particular time? So again, I think the pandemic is going to drive those changes. So who knows, in 10, 15 years' time, people may be doing very general degrees that might be science or technology or arts orientated with a series of essentially electives drawn from other institutions on the terms they choose. And they'll be coming out with a very general bachelor's qualification. That, it seems to me, is going to be more of the future education.
I agree with that a lot. I think I said on a previous podcast episode that I would like university courses to be more modular. So, and it seems to be going that way. Oh, damn, I had something else to say, but it slipped my mind. Aadi, do you have any comments while I recover the thought?
I do think that the modular system is really interesting. I think I would be very, very fascinated of doing, certain parts of my degrees from various different universities and getting that experience. I just have a micro question of sorts. But Professor Hew, have you heard of Minerva University before?
I have heard of Minerva. Goddess of Wisdom.
Yes. So there is this university after the name. And for those of you at home and don't know what this university is, it's based in the US in San Francisco, but they have a very unique approach to the education system, I would say. So their application process isn't exactly based on an entrance exam and your test scores. They do calculate your grades, and they have a very extensive extracurricular list, but they also have video interviews, on-demand interviews online, and a bunch of competency tests that are more logic-based as part of the application process to enter the university. But the interesting thing about the university is that the university has no physical location. There is no university. So students move with their batchmates, and every semester they do it in a different city, in a different country. So they start off in San Francisco, and then they can move to Berlin. They can, I think it's Munich. And all of their lectures are online, but all of their assignments they use the environment they're in. So for example, this very popular YouTuber, her name is Anjana Jane on YouTube. She goes there, she vlogs her experiences, and some of her assignments involve going out onto the streets and doing something, interacting with the practical side of what they're learning.
So part of Minerva is that we actually engage with the city, we learn more about an aspect of the culture.
But we have this networking event tonight which is called Civitas.
Berlin is made of everyone.
There are certain environments which make studying not a chore, but an experience. An environment of like-minded people who just want to sit quietly and read about the world.
And I think that's a very interesting approach, because I think it gives you a very global perspective. Obviously, you're forced to learn new languages and new cultures. And I think the added practical part makes it very interesting. I wasn't actually looking at joining that university in the past because I was a bit skeptic about its credentials. But I heard recently that they've actually been officially recognized by the US accrediting body for universities. So they are actually accredited at this point. But I just wanted to hear what do you think about the university, Professor?
I think it's a wonderful idea, but I think that what will increasingly happen is that students will be able to have, if you like, the Minerva experience by registering with a home institution and then taking the opportunity to travel to other institutions. So again, I'm involved here at Sunway very much in student mobility. In fact, we're sending some students abroad now this week. They'll be going to the UK like you, and they'll be going over to spend a semester with, in fact, our main partner, Lancaster University. Right, and I think there's going to be a lot more of that kind of activity taking place. So what's interesting is, I'm sure everybody is aware of Brexit, and that the UK was obviously part of the Erasmus scheme, which was operating in the European Union. Now, we're interested here in Malaysia in its replacement the Turing scheme, which is the UK government scheme for UK students only to go overseas. So unlike Erasmus, it's not a sort of two-way thing. It's the UK government encouraging UK students to go overseas. And I was amazed to see the statistics. So apparently, I might get this slightly wrong, but during the period when Erasmus was running, approximately 15 to 20,000 UK students would travel abroad under Erasmus. I understand in its first year with Turing, they've had nearly 3 times as many applications, which is not what anybody expected. Now, I don't have any detail on that yet, and I may have got those figures slightly wrong, but I know that Turing has proved to be a lot more popular than Erasmus. I don't know why, but I suspect that students are now realizing that the opportunity to travel is not just about having that great experience. It also, of course, adds value. If you're familiar with another culture, if you speak some of that language, you're now much more valuable as a graduate because you can now work with a range of other people online. Now, that's the other wonderful thing about building a multidisciplinary team from around the world. We can now do that online, but those cultural differences haven't suddenly disappeared. So cultural awareness and understanding of other people's thoughts, languages, and background is still going to be extremely useful. And if you've had that firsthand in their country, you're going to be much more easily able to work with those kinds of people from different backgrounds. So again, I think the Minerva experience is something you are going to have increasingly from traditional universities.
That is interesting. I am very, very excited for the future of education in that case, honestly.
Yeah.
Leo, did you remember your question by any chance?
I did. Not really a question, but my thought is that, yeah, age is very quickly becoming less and less of a barrier. You find, I think, with certain schemes like ADTP, American Degree Transfer Program, and foundation courses, you find students in university age is going down gradually. Yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Right. Well, I would just like to kind of take this discussion on a different tangent and move on to this last segment, where I actually want to ask Professor a little bit more about you and your background. So Leo introduced you as the Associate Provost for Sunway University, and as I understand, you are also a psychology lecturer. And I kind of wanted to understand a little bit more about what your role entails as an Associate Provost at Sunway University.
If you find the answer to that question, let me know. I'd be interested. Obviously, I have a series of formal responsibilities, particularly around students. I deal a lot with student-related matters, but I get involved as well. For example, we're now setting up a new Centre for Organisation and Professional Education, which is going to offer a whole range of microcredentials. So I'm the interim head of that, establishing that. So that's part of our business-facing lifelong learning arm, taking new and interesting courses, making them available out there for anybody, actually. So I get involved in that. I get obviously involved in things like student mobility. I also get involved in the franchising of our programs to partner institutions. I also get involved in dealing with partnerships. And of course, I get involved in doing a bit of research here and there. And occasionally, if I'm lucky, I get into a lecture theatre, either physically or virtually, and get to be shown what I don't know by the bright young minds who are in there with me.
That last bit, I honestly have a really big admiration for lecturers and professors who kind of make an effort to make this a conversation when they do their lectures. Some of my favorite lecturers have been people of that sort. And something else that, and I ask this question a lot because this is an area that I'm very, very interested in, is multidisciplinary experience, or this idea that your entire life isn't tied to one thing. And this is something I talk about a lot because I feel like many students my age have this misconception that if you study this one degree, you are more or less fixed on this one path. And I wanted to ask you because as it happens, when I was stalking your LinkedIn profile, I saw that you previously had worked for Standard Chartered Global as part of their assessment and strategy implementation. I think that's the name, somewhat of the name of the role. Whereas, if I'm not mistaken, your educational background goes around more philosophy and psychology and education in that kind of realm. So could you tell us a little bit more about what you did at Standard Chartered, that experience, and as well as this idea of going into a job that isn't exactly related to your degree?
Well, let me start by saying your degree is not your destiny, right? It doesn't matter what you study, right? It really doesn't. And this comes back to this idea that university is not just about the discipline, right? The discipline is important, yes, but it's a means of teaching you how to think, how to learn, right? How to apply yourself to solving problems. And all the things that you learn while you're studying are directly applicable in the real world as well. Now, as you've rightly picked up, I've actually spent most of my life in business. Okay, so although I'm now sitting in an academic role, I've spent most of my life finding ways to try and make money. And the best way to make money is actually to make other people's lives better, so they give you money for doing it, right? So that's the secret of business. Any successful business is about providing people with something that makes their lives better, so that they will give you money to do that. And whatever you're studying, if you can find a way of applying that in business, you're now in business. So what do you think lawyers do? Lawyers are essentially in business. You might be practicing the law, but you've got to get clients, right? You've got to provide a service that people want to pay for. Similarly, if you're studying computing and IT like Leo, you've got to have a skill that people want to buy. Even if you're an employee, basically you're in business. You're selling your labor and your intellect to the people who are paying your salary. So in the end, no matter what you're doing, it's about leveraging whatever it is that you've got, whatever talents you have, to maximize what you become valuable for, whether that be directly to an employer or to any kind of customer. And many of those skills will directly translate across different areas of activity. So if you know, for example, how to structure a good argument as a lawyer, you can write a good business case. You can make a good sales pitch. These are all exactly the same skills. They're about understanding how to organize information in a way that convinces other people of whatever point of view it is you wish to put across. And you might learn that as a lawyer. You might learn that studying literature. You might learn that studying philosophy, all the ideas of Aristotle, or you might learn that as a psychologist, learning what are the things that make people agree with you. So never feel that you're limited by what you've studied. Think about building a life that is rich in terms of experience and that also enables you the capacity to develop your talents and sharpen your skills. So look for new experience, look for new things to do, look to leverage what you already know to take you to new places, and develop and mature. That's the whole purpose of having a life, isn't it? Is to have experience. Why would you want to just do the same thing forever? And particularly young people today have many, many, many more opportunities than previous generations. You are so lucky to be able to sit there and complain that the Wi-Fi's gone off. How wonderful is that? How wonderful is that? How privileged are you? Think about it. You live and have a higher standard of living than any medieval king or pharaoh ever had. And you will live a lot longer than they would ever have hoped to have lived or even dreamt of living in a much higher standard of health. It's a fantastic time to be alive. You are so lucky. You're on the edge probably of a time of great abundance. So enjoy it and take all those opportunities while you can. Don't limit yourself by saying you must have one job doing the same thing forever. Move, do something different. And also, I suppose the last thing I'm always saying to people is have a plan. Think now about what you would like to do in your life and plan it. So I have a life plan, and in my life plan, at this stage in my life, I wanted to go into research and into education. That's why I'm sitting talking to you from a university. I didn't quite follow the direct path I'd expected. I hadn't expected Standard Chartered to come along in the middle between me leaving my own sort of entrepreneurial businesses in university. But it was a wonderful opportunity and it brought me to Asia. So why wouldn't I have taken it? I'm very grateful to Standard Chartered, to the wonderful time, the wonderful people that I met there. But I had a plan of things I wanted to do. And there are still things I want to do with the rest of my life. And because I've got some idea of what I want to happen, I'm steering my canoe. I'm not just going along with the flow of the river. I have some idea of where I want to end up. So I would suggest you sit down now and think about, what do you want to get out of life? If you're a young person of 20 today, you've probably got another 80 to 100 years to spend. So think about what you want to do with that time and spend your time wisely, because it's the one resource you can never get back.
Thank you, Professor Hew. Honestly, that was really, really insightful. And people at home, you are incredibly privileged. We have such a good opportunity here. I remember reading this book. It's called The Hook Point. And it says how we have more information at the tip of our fingers than almost all the US presidents ever had. We have so much power that we can do and so much opportunity. And as Uncle Ben said in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's important to have a plan. And I think that we talk about having a plan a lot on Not Just Serious, and it's all about, I think, understanding what you want out of life and finding paths and opportunities and tugging at strings that you think will take you there. And last thing, because we want to tie this up, and I understand you have another meeting, is where can one read your research and understand more of your articles and see the work that you do?
Well, that depends. Some of it's in the popular press, some of it, of course, is in the academic press. If I'm writing in either of those spheres about anything you're interested in, you'll probably come across it. But hey, there are so many things out there. As you just said, Aadi, I once heard a statistic, I don't know if it's true, that there is more information in the average Sunday paper than the average educated person would have come across in their whole life in the 18th century. There is so much stuff out there. Don't limit yourself. Don't just try and read my stuff. Read whatever takes your fancy. And the more you read, the more you inform yourself, of course, the happier you will be.
Thank you so much. Leo, would you kindly exit us from this podcast? Thank you so much, Professor Hew, for speaking to us.
All right, so as our regular closer goes, if you liked this episode, please give it a thumbs up. I don't forget what it is, but if you'd like to connect with us in the future or follow what we do, please follow us on Instagram at notsosrs, that's Not So Serious. You can also send us an email at admin at notsoserious.com, and please follow us on whatever you're following. That will conclude. Thank you for listening.